टेम्पलेट को।
Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. At least 8 people have died, according to Iranian media, after what is being described as a terrorist attack. 5 civilians and 3 assailants have died after an attack on a judiciary building in southeastern Iran, according to the state-run media reporting. US President Donald Trump says Hamas didn't want a deal as the US and Israel walk away from peace talks. Amid uncertainty over diplomacy, Israel has said it will allow countries to drop aid into Gaza by air, as the UN says a third of Gazans are starving, with 122 hunger deaths reported. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres has urged for immediate action in Gaza to stop reported starvation, stating that words don't feed starving children. This comes as President Trump slams Emmanuel Macron's planned announcement, recognizing a Palestinian state. The US has warned China to stop fueling Russia's aggression in Ukraine at the United Nations, with China hitting back, accusing Washington of trying to shift blame. It comes as further strikes have been reported overnight as hopes of ceasefire remain distant. EU officials say a trade deal with the United States could be possible this weekend. It comes as Donald Trump has arrived in Scotland for a 4-day visit where he will meet EU chief Ursula von der Leyen on Sunday, ahead of the August 1st deal deadline. Cambodia has called for an immediate ceasefire as military action along the disputed border with Thailand intensifies. This comes after dozens of casualties were reported from both sides, with more than 100,000 people displaced from the border region. A bus travelling from Lima to Peru's Amazon region has overturned in the Andes Mountains, leaving at least 18 people dead. The double-decker bus overturned on a highway with dozens of further passengers injured, according to local authorities. Ghislaine Maxwell, an associate of the late financier Jeffrey Epstein, is seeking a Supreme Court hearing in a bid to overturn her conviction. This comes amid allegations about Epstein's relationship with President Donald Trump, which he has denied as fake news. Now, welcome. We start this hour with diplomatic developments in the Middle East, where French President Emmanuel Macron announced on Thursday that France will officially recognise the Palestinian state, making it the first Western member of the UN Security Council to do so. The decision, which follows months of diplomatic pressure, comes after Macron's visit to Egypt in April, where he was deeply affected by the escalating humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. Initially, Macron sought to rally support from G7 allies, including Britain and Canada, but both countries chose not to join in the initiative, leaving France to act alone. France's recognition is linked to an upcoming UN conference in September, where Macron hopes to secure broader support for a two-state solution. Despite the symbolic nature of the recognition, Macron is using it to push Palestinian authorities for reforms, such as the disarmament of Hamas and the establishment of a regional stabilization force. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio reaffirmed his commitment to securing the release of 50 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. Rubio met with families of the captives in Washington, stressing the urgent need for a deal that brings all hostages home. This came after the US and Israel pulled negotiators from ceasefire talks in the Qatari capital of Doha, signalling a shift towards exploring alternative options for securing the hostages' release. We're now joined by Yossi Kapelwasser, who is Israeli intelligence and security expert. Thank you very much, Yossi, for joining us. He joins us live from Tel Aviv right now.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, Yossi. Yossi, let's start with France's statement that obviously first came on Thursday. France just became the first permanent member of the UN Security Council to recognize Palestine, the first member of G7 to recognize a Palestinian state. Macron here has had no success in convincing others to do so far. Even if Paris does break ranks here, how does Israel avoid diplomatic isolation?
Well, we are not worried about deep diplomatic isolation at this point because of what Macron did, or what he announced. He has not done it yet. I think that the problem is not the isolation. The problem is the negative impact this is going to have on the prospects of having any kind of peace between us and the Palestinians in the future. If somebody is going to determine or predetermine the result of a negotiation between Israel and the Palestinians about peace, then it's not going to be helpful, because the Palestinians will not show any flexibility. They would believe that their problems are going to be solved by foreign parties. This is bad for peace in the Middle East. That's what I'm concerned with. And on top of that, the timing is terrible, because it shows that it pays off to carry out terror attacks against Israel. The horrific terror attack of October 7th pays off for the Palestinians.
Yossi,
The French are willing to recognize a Palestinian state due to what happened on October 7th. This is totally ridiculous.
Okay, Yossi, just to reiterate what has been said, Benjamin Netanyahu has obviously responded to this, as you said, has said it is rewarding terror. That's how the Israeli Prime Minister views it. However, Macron, the French president, says recognition is leverage to force Palestinian reforms, including the elimination of Hamas, the disarmament of it, and creating a regional stabilization force. So why not test that leverage instead of dismissing this move outright?
Because he did not condition the recognition of the Palestinian state on all of these moves that he expects the Palestinians to do. He's going to recognize the Palestinian state even if the Palestinians do nothing. And that makes no sense. I mean, it would have made some sense, not really positive move, if he had conditioned recognition on the Palestinian readiness to accept Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people. If he would condition that on the Palestinians stopping paying salaries to terrorists. No, the Palestinians, the Palestinian authorities paying salaries to terrorists who are serving time in Israeli jails. And for terrorists who lost their lives while they were carrying terror attacks, Palestinian authorities paying them stipends and salaries. This is the organization you want to recognize as a state. Well, what's the logic here? If he would have been able to say that in return to my recognition, they are going to change the way they are behaving and recognize Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people, that would make some sense. But this is not the case. And he's predetermining the results of the negotiations, and creates no incentive for the Palestinians to do anything, because he's already recognizing.
Yossi,
so why would the Palestinians do things?
Yossi, obviously we saw Macron's efforts to try and get Britain and Canada to do the same. They have so far said that they will not do so. However, international pressure from governments is mounting on Israel. Do you see pressure rising further, and will Israel take action and acknowledge this international condemnation as pressure mounts against the Israeli government? We also obviously have pressure from the Israeli people, where a poll just came out that 82% of people want to see an end to this war in Gaza. What are your thoughts, Yossi?
Everybody wants to see an end to this war in Gaza. I don't believe that there's anybody who wants the war to go on. The problem is under what conditions. We were determined to make sure that the 50 hostages that Hamas still holds are going to be released, because without that there cannot be an end to the war in Gaza. And we want to make sure that Hamas is removed from power in Gaza, because if Hamas stays in power in Gaza after what they did on October 7th, then it means that it was a good idea to carry out the terror attacks of October 7th. So we have to make sure that they lose power and they're replaced by somebody who is ready to live side by side with Israel and have peaceful relationships. Okay. That's what needs to be done. If this is going to be acceptable, we shall stop the war. Now, by the way, Hamas refused the ceasefire offers that was presented to him by the mediators, including Qatar and Egypt and the United States. And this is why President Trump said it seems that they want to die. That's what they want to. to do. And we are now faced with a situation. We don't need international pressures.
Yossi, I'm very sorry to interrupt. I have to be conscious of time here. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will, of course, bring you all updates from the ongoing Hamas-Israel conflict. We now move over to Southeast Asia, where tensions along the Thai-Cambodian border have escalated into a deadly conflict, now entering its third day. Malaysia has urgently called for a ceasefire amid the worst clashes between the two neighbours in over a decade. Hundreds of Cambodian nationals have now fled their homes, seeking refuge in makeshift camps as artillery fire continues to disrupt the region. Both Thailand and Cambodia accuse each other of aggression, with attacks erupting over long-standing border disputes centred around ancient temples and unmarked boundary points. Efforts led by Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim aim to halt the violence and restart diplomatic negotiations, but firing persists, displacing thousands and threatening regional stability. We're now joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao, who's a foreign affairs expert. He joins us live from Tokyo, Japan. Dr. Nagao, for our viewers who have just joined us, I was wondering if you could give us a bit of background to this fighting, this conflict. What are Thailand and Cambodia fighting each other for, and what is the foundations of this violence?
Foundation of this conflict is what happened in the imperial age, 19th century. That was a cause of the problem. That time, Thai was an independent country, but Cambodia was colony of France. And France took some territory from Thailand. So that territory, view from Thailand, this is part of Thailand. But view from Cambodia, when they established the country, they independent, that time that part is also the part of the Cambodia. So Cambodia think this is also their territory. So both sides claim the same places as their territory. That has happened. After the Cambodian independence, indeed, temporarily Thai occupied their territory. But after that, Cambodia asked the international court, and the international court decided this is Cambodia, part of Cambodia. That's why the Thai troops withdraw from that region. So Cambodia take this territory, and that's why even if both sides claimed this territory, but Cambodia controlled it. But generally, that is a perception. But that problem has revealed when the UNESCO decided temple in that place as a World Heritage. And since then, both sides claim that territory again and fought each other. And recent problem has occurred in May when they fought each other. But that time, a little bit different with what happened in the past, because real fight has broken out and some soldier was dead. And this must repeat it again. During the negotiation between the two governments, indeed, the current government of the Thailand is Hun Sen family. So Pe Ton Tang is the daughter of the Thaksin, sorry, not Hun Sen, sorry, Thaksin's family. And Thaksin is influential, but Thaksin do not popular in the army in Thailand. And Thaksin's family is close friend of the Hun Sen's family in the Cambodia. Hun Sen's family now, the father of the Hun Sen was elected politician, but now the nearly dictator. But now the son of the Hun Sen is leading the country. So both families are close friends. So they try to negotiate and try to cease the fire between two. But indeed, Hun Sen's family in the Cambodia revealed this negotiation tape to the outside. And because of their close families, Pentotan said something to criticize their army, Thailand army. So that's why the view from inside of the Thailand politics, the army was very upset. Indeed, Thaksin was not popular in the Thai army, and in the past, the coup has happened and pushed Thaksin out. Now they reconcile, but despite this, in that negotiations, Thaksin's daughter, current Prime Minister Paetongtarn, criticized the army that is not a good relation between army and Thaksin. So that's why now the Thaksin lose influence towards their army, Thai army, and Thai army takes the initiative, I think. So indeed, the view from the military balance, Thailand is far stronger than Cambodia. Thai has fighter jet, Cambodia do not have the fighter jet. So that's why if the all-out war has happened, of course Thai can win. But at the same time, Thailand rely on the tourists. Forgetting tourists, if the war break out, the income of the Thailand will be damaged. So that's why, view from the politics of Thailand, Thailand do not want to escalate this situation. But if Thailand decide to use their strong military against Cambodia, Thailand has the advantage. That is the current situation, I think.
Yes, Dr. Nagal, thank you very much for providing that context. You are staying with us as we discuss more updates from Asia. Now we move over to Europe for now, where US President Donald Trump has touched down in Scotland for a 4-day private visit. He arrived at Prestwick Airport on Friday evening and immediately headed to his luxury golf resort, Trump Turnberry in South Ayrshire. Trump began his first day on the green, teeing off at his course. He is expected to meet Prime Minister Keir Starmer later during the trip. There are also reports of Trump meeting the EU chief Ursula von der Leyen. Authorities have launched a major security operation in South Ayrshire and Aberdeenshire to ensure safety. Police presence has been increased throughout key areas ahead of the president's visit. We're now joined by Joshua Barnes, who's an anchor and correspondent. Joshua, what more context can you give to this visit to the north of Britain for the US president? What is he expected to discuss with these leaders? Obviously, it's being very much pitched as a private visit, but where Donald Trump goes, headlines seem to follow. So what can we expect?
Well, yes, absolutely, Thomas. Of course, Trump is a headline-making machine, and everything he says gets written up across the world. Of course, comments that he made before jumping on the plane to head to Scotland, talking about trade, talking about Hamas and Gaza and the ongoing negotiations there. But now he is in Scotland. A lot of this trip is about leisure. We know Trump loves playing golf. It is everywhere. And he's going to be spending a lot of his time on the greens trying to get birdies and eagles galore. But there is still a diplomatic angle to this. Conversations going on Sunday with Ursula von der Leyen, who is the EU chief. Of course, this comes with the context of that Trump deadline that was given as August the 1st. Trump has been strong with this deadline, saying that it will remain in place. But on the flip side, as we know Trump often does, contradicting himself, saying that it can be moved. So it's not necessarily last chance for the EU and US to agree to a deal, but ultimately Trump is unpredictable, and we don't know what might happen if a deal isn't concluded. The EU have come out and said that a deal is possible this weekend. Ursula von der Leyen will be hoping to look over those details which aren't in agreement between the two parties. Trump himself, before boarding on the flight, when saying that a deal was 50-50 as to whether it would get done with the EU, also said that there are around 20 different points in which he sees there are major differences. So a lot to iron out. Whether that will be done solely in Scotland during this meeting between von der Leyen and Trump, we wait to see. Of course, diplomacy is multifaceted and there could be further conversations. Just to give you a short update as well, we've reported on this already, but Keir Starmer is also going to be meeting Donald Trump. We expect that to be more of a colloquial meeting between two leaders who have strengthened ties. Of course, there was some friction over the US action on Ukraine, pulling military aid, and of course Trump's rhetoric towards Volodymyr Zelensky when he was in the White House months ago. But since then, a trade deal has been agreed between the United Kingdom and the United States. That is a deal in principle. There are still bits in which could be tweaks. A big one: Britain is a key manufacturer and exporter of steel. Of course, Trump has put separate steel and aluminium tariffs in place for trading partners like the United Kingdom, like Canada and other nations alike, which they are going to have to face. Starmer is potentially looking to reduce this, but Trump has been clear there's not much wiggle room on both steel and aluminium tariffs. A lot to look forward to. Trump on the golf course, what more can you want?
Joshua Barnes, thank you very much for providing that context. We will bring you all the updates coming from Scotland as we get them. Now we move on to the West Asian region, where gunmen from the Sunni group Jaish al-Adl have reportedly launched an attack on a courthouse in Iran's troubled Sistan-Baluchestan province. At least 8 people, including 5 civilians and 3 assailants, were killed, with several others injured and rushed to hospitals. Details do remain limited, but Iran's semi-official Fars news agency reported that a suicide bomber may have been involved in the assault. According to reports, the attackers opened fire and forced their way into judges' chambers during the deadly raid. Jaish al-Adl, a Baloch Sunni jihadist faction, has claimed responsibility for the attack. The region of Sistan-Baluchestan has long been a flashpoint for violence, with frequent confrontations between Iranian security forces and armed groups. Tehran often accuses these groups of cross-border insurgency, smuggling and alleged foreign backing. We're now joined by we are now covering this attack that has happened in Iran, in this province. We have limited details on this so far. However, we will bring you more information as this situation develops. The attack has occurred in the Sistan-Baluchestan province, where at least 8 people, including 5 civilians and 3 assailants, are believed to have died at the scene, with several others, we don't have the number of them yet, being rushed to hospital. We are unsure of their condition right now. As we've said, details remain limited on this situation. However, we will bring you the information as we get it. The group has claimed responsibility for attack, the Jaish al-Adl, a Baloch Sunni jihadist faction who has claimed responsibility for this attack. We are now joined by our guest, Dr. Satoru Nagao, to discuss this unfolding and developing situation in more detail. Dr. Nagao, a dramatic and tragic incident coming out of West Asia today. 8 people confirmed dead. What do we know about this situation and the group that has claimed responsibility for it, the Jaish al-Adl faction? What are your thoughts?
There is a Balochistan movement not only in Pakistan but also in Iran, because Baloch is after the Kurdish, they are the second largest ethnic who do not have their independent country. So that's why the Balochistan problem is not just in the Pakistan, that's in the Iran also. And in case of Iran, indeed, for a long time, it hasn't revealed so much. But recently, some cases, it has happened. And sometimes it has led to the exchange between the Pakistan and Iran. So that's why this incident is important. But related to the recent events, indeed, because of Iran's problem is not just internal problem. Indeed, their problem is international because they support other militant in other country, but at the same time, other country has a motivation to intervene in Iran also because of their Iran's support to the other country, as militant in other country. So that's why this Balochistan's rebellion is, of course, on surface, this is just an internal problem, but indeed, this is not. There's a possibility this is not.
Yes, Dr. Satoru Nagao, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. We will continue to bring you all updates in regards to that developing situation as we get them. But next to Europe, where Russia says its forces have captured a second village in Ukraine's central Dnipro-Peskov region. The Defence Ministry announced the seizure of Malivika, marking Moscow's latest advance in the strategic industrial zone. Earlier this month, Russia took control of its first village in the region. Meanwhile, this comes as deadly airstrikes killed 3 people in Ukraine's Dnipro region and 2 in Russia's Rostov region. Ukraine reported massive drone and missile strikes on multiple cities. Russia claimed it shot down over 50 Ukrainian drones overnight. as cross-border attacks between the warring nations continue to escalate. We're once again joined by Professor Madhav Nalapath, who's the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. Professor Nalapath, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. We obviously continue to follow this story. However, daily strikes, daily aerial strikes are a daily occurrence here, mainly sticking within the same regions, but cross-border strikes seem to be escalating and not slowing down as diplomatic negotiations are reported in the background. What is your current view on this conflict, Professor Nalapath, and how are you analysing the current move towards peace, if there is any?
Look, I'd like to say that Vladimir Putin said he needed 60 days to do the job, and 10 days later, President Trump gave him 50 days. Of course, President Trump is now sitting pretty because he's selling arms to Ukraine. So using European money, the Ukraine is using the money it got from Europe to buy American arms. But I'd like to say that I do not believe that this war is going anywhere for the Ukrainian side. But the difficulty is that Zelensky is absolutely averse to any kind of deal except that which has the unrealistic condition of getting back the territories that were lost to Ukraine in 2014 by the Maidan revolution, or some would call it coup. So the point is therefore, within the Ukraine itself, demonstrations are very frequent now. For the first time, Western media started reporting about the corruption under Zelensky, and this is a welcome sign. It means that they are looking to regime change, and quite likely that you may have General Zaluzny as the replacement. Zaluzny was replaced 1 year ago by Zelensky because he said it's senseless to carry on the war. Let's have peace. And since the war started, regrettably, so many Ukrainians have died and Russians have died, and the Ukrainians have only lost more and more territory. So this is just one more bit of territory that the Ukrainians have lost. I think the sooner this war ends, the better it will be for Ukraine, for Russia, and for common humanity.
Yes, Professor Nalapath, thank you very much for joining us on the programme, and we will continue to bring you all updates coming out of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Well, that's all we have time for, and we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.